I don't understand why corporations can't just pay people more. I could be missing a key part in this puzzle, probably something to do with lateral scaling of being paid more. Things get pricier. But how come we don't get paid more? Wouldn't that incentivize buying more things? Meaning that they'd sell more products overall and everyone would be happier. Maybe I'm just thinking about the perfect world, but it makes sense to me that if I were to get paid more for what I do, then I'd be able to have more to spend on other things that are almost essential. Bills would get paid on time every time. I'd probably be more of a consumer than I am now. It probably has something to do with greed, who knows. Also, good morning to everyone, sorry you had to see my verbal spillage lol. Greed, lack of empathy. They see life as a game that they are winning and we are losing. Someone with better values sees life differently and would want others to be happy as well. Edited for spelling. I'm guessing you never saw that Dilbert cartoon where the boss guy was just sitting there thinking to himself, if I cut costs enough, we can make a profit without actually selling any product. I know the author went off the deep end, but that line of thinking seems to be the current business philosophy everyone is trying to follow. They don't pay us more because it is all very clearly trickling down to us. Wealthy people have successfully convinced enough non-wealthy people that giving them the majority of money is better for the economy, so we have people living in poverty defending obscene wealth hoarding and secretly hoping it will be them doing the hoarding someday. The thing about raising prices has largely been disproven by economists. In fact, you can see the proofs otherwise with things like the same products sold in the US and Northern Europe. With Northern Europe mandating higher pay roughly double, charging more in taxes more than double, and still the product is cheaper. It has separately been proven that the leading cause of inflation is now corporate greed and profit margins. Corporate greed. That's actually what would happen. Right now, profit margins are so high and wages so low that raising wages a crap ton would be healthy and good. But corporations simply don't care, and want to minimize costs. Corporations exist to maximize profit. If they pay people more, they might not make as much profit as they could be making. Because capitalists somehow believe you can continue extracting exponentially increasing wealth out of a closed system. I work for a Fortune 500 company. If we hit our targets get raised. Always growth. Why doesn't it stop? Because there are competitors right behind us trying to steal our lunch. If we don't grow, the competition causes our business to shrink and jobs are lost. The only countries that seem to be doing it right have very high tax rates that go to social support. This country is too Christian to vote for taking care of humans, go figure. So all of our taxes go to defense instead, which is a sacred cow. Corporations' responsibility to produce profit isn't to their employees but to their shareholders. Paying us more means their multi-million-dollar bonus packages go away. Classism. Ain't no warfare like class warfare. So they can pay themselves and their shareholders. They don't give a fuck about you. Their fiduciary duty is to maximize shareholder value, which is directly at odds with paying workers more. Corporations exist solely to enrich shareholders. Paying anything but the minimum wage that's needed to maintain a workforce is contrary to that. Because their goal is to profit the shareholders, not the employees. So if paying you less means more profit, it makes sense. They can. They don't, because then they get paid more. Because giving more money to employees is bad for shareholders and therefore, executives. Read this carefully. They don't care about you. You are a wheel in the cog. Learn it. Live it. If two companies pay their employees differently, the company that pays their employees better has less capital. When they both want to expand, the cheap company can do so easier, hire more people that they pay poorly, and they accelerate growth faster. They become larger, they are a better known name, and you see them everywhere, like Walmart and Amazon. If all companies pay people more, then what you say is exactly true, and it's why the fight for a higher minimum wage is so important. Shareholder value over worker value. Business ethics over human ethics. Greed. Admittedly, I stopped reading after the second sentence. The part you are missing of the puzzle is that we, the workforce, is an expense required to run the business. And just like every other expense the business has, the cheaper they can get it, the more revenue they can keep. We don't get paid more because there is zero incentive for a business to pay us more than the government requires them to do so. TLDR greed. The goal isn't to make people happier, it's to make more money for themselves. If you ask for a raise or talk about unions with your coworkers, they'll get rid of you and hire a new person who won't. It's been like this for decades. It's greed, at least when it comes to large businesses and publicly traded companies. Many small businesses might not be at the stage to pay high wages yet. They don't want to. Companies are owned by shareholders, which usually companies. And, what they really care about, most of them, is what the profits are going to be the next year, or the year after. Think about, I have a choice to invest $1,000 in two different companies, and one have $200 last year and one gave $50 last company. Are you going to invest in? Yeah, maybe the company that only gave out $50 is going to make more over the next couple of. Most people care about what they are going to make now. Raising pay increases costs and lowers profits. If they could pay less, they would. Which is why so many jobs in this sub are underpaid or understaffed. There are no consequences for underpaying. Nobody's getting fined or sued. You make a problem, you get fired. It doesn't help that someone else will do your job cheaper. Because you are cost to them. Listen to the Behind the Bastards podcast episode on Jack Walsh. Before him, corporations did care about employees. After him, they only care about stock price and stock buybacks. The issue isn't just make a profit. The current goals of capital are to optimize profit. Make as much profit in as short amount of time as possible. Workers are seen as an expense, not an asset. And our workers lack the balls and means to rebel. This has been the paradigm since the early 1980s. Henry Ford, for all his villainy, made sure he paid his employees enough that they could cover their basic needs and buy a new car from him every year. But how come we don't get paid more? Wouldn't that incentivize buying more things? Meaning that they'd sell more products overall and everyone would be happier. Companies hire teams dedicated specifically to crunch numbers to determine the optimal results. How big is the market we're in? How large is our customer base within it? How many people are already dedicated to purchasing us over the competition? How far can we expand each product line? What is the absolute lowest we can pay employees before they walk out, etc.? Labor is a cost like any other input to a business. Other costs are determined by the company you are receiving it from. You have no choice, you either pay for their goods service at that price or not. Labor cost is controlled by the company, not the employees. They tell you what they will pay, you either accept it and work or you don't and look elsewhere. Most people have no choice and ain't forced to accept those wages. No company will voluntarily raise their costs. Most of the time prices would rise is just an excuse. It's all greed. Remember, corporations are people. People looking to pocket money. Corporations exist to make money, not to employ people. The amount of money isn't as important as how much more than us they have. Inequality is what they want. It's no fun being wealthy if the huddled masses aren't suffering. Shareholders. Because the most powerful governments are all big supporters of capitalism, when socialists try to gain support they get put down by capital governments through propaganda and or backing of dictators who will support capitalism. Capitalism is the problem. They want to have of unemployment just to keep people desperate and willing to work for crumbs. And people tend to think they are better than the McDonald's worker, so they won't fight for us all to be given a living wage. Shareholders' quarterly returns, human life and flourishing. Also, C staff needs to make 800x more than the average employee in the new vampire capitalist meta.